All right, well, here I am out in the garage again, and I do have to admit that I would agree with you when you say, gosh, Don, it seems a little chaotic to be living your life in the midst of 3 or 4 major projects. And I would agree with you, it's a little bit nutty. However, let me explain the positive benefits of having numerous projects going at the same time. Okay, so here's the logic that keeps my brain from exploding from having so many projects going on. When you're working on anything big that has the application of materials like fairing compound, paint and clear coat, whatever, you got to do the work and then you got to go away and let it sit for some period of time to cure or dry or otherwise be ready for the next step. So I have been out working on the Santana 22 lately, but where I'm at right now at the boat is I've got that full front deck covered with a new coat of the fairing compound, and that stuff needs to dry. And it's not really drying. It is a 2-part compound, so you mix the white and the gray together. The white is the actual putty, the gray is the activator, and so it is kind of like an epoxy, but I'm finding that it's pretty slow to cure to the point where you can sand it. So you can get up there and it's pretty solid hard, but it's still a little rubbery. So if you go after it with a sandpaper, you start to ball up little pieces of it and it doesn't sand very well. So it needs to sit for a day or two, preferably before you get to the sanding. And I've carefully done a full coat across almost all the top. I know there's a little work left to do of stuff that I know needs one more coat, but I've got some stuff that's got to cure first to get me into those last little places. So I'm back in the garage here, and we're going to turn our attention to this bad boy for a little bit, and we're going to start some of our cutting and polishing. So what I'm going to do first of all is, just like before, I kind of started with the dash to get my process figured out. So I've backed the car out of the garage. I'm standing in the part of the garage where the car lives, and I'm going to set up my little portable carpenter's table thing right here in the middle of the floor. I'm going to crank up some tunes, and we're going to do some buffing and polishing and see if we can get that dash down to where the clear coat's all handled and figure out what I'm up against so I can do the rest of the components and pieces and parts and get them all taken care of. So let's do that. think I've mentioned before that sanding and polishing and all that is paying your dues. Well, I am paying my dues. So I'm going to spin you around and show you the hood so far here. So I'm understanding this cut and polish thing a little better. I don't know if I'll be able to show you on camera, but you know, I can see a spot or two. Let's see if I can find one here that you can kind of see. So see right there, I don't know how well the camera's going to pick that up, but you can kind of see I still have a little bit of that little small orange peely stuff, and there's kind of dull and shiny and dull and shiny. So there's shiny stuff down in the, let's wipe it off here a little bit. All right, so there's shiny stuff down in there, which is the undisturbed part of the clear coat, and the high parts are still needing to be worked down, and they're still a little high, so they're dull as they've been sanded. So I'm going back over with the lamb's wool head, and it's coming out pretty good. Now here's a spot, maybe that'll show up. You can kind of see where I still got to do some work there. But when we look at, say, this spot here, other than just a few light little scratches in there, we're pretty good shape. So again, I think I'm starting to understand what I'm doing here. So I'll now I'm actually going to take a break because there's a storm coming. I'm going to move all this out the side and get the car in the garage for a little bit. But I can see that maybe I should have spent a little more time with the 1500 grit. I worked on it with a little bit with 2000. But that wet sanding, it's a little hard to see what you're doing. But I can kind of get ideally what you want to do is kind of sand a little, clean everything off, see what you got, and then sand a little more, clean it off, see what you got. But I think it's working okay to work with the cutting compound and that lamb's wool thing. And as I go, I'm cleaning it off in between sections. I mean, I'm going for a while and then I'm stopping, clean everything off, have a good hard look at it. And so I can start to see now that, okay, this chunk's all good. So I'll stop working on it with the lamb's wool and concentrate on some of these other chunks that are not so good. But overall, it's looking pretty good, I think. So for today, that might be it. Weather alerts has gone off and said there's a big thunderstorm coming with hail, and I hate hail. So I'm gonna throw the hood back up on my little dollies over here, move the table out of the way, pull the car back in, and go eat some dinner. All right, well, I've been working on this hood for a while, and in between working on the hood, I've been managing a little crisis with the customer. So I've been on and off the phone all morning, but I have finished up with my lamb's wool, and I've got the fine and the ultra fine foam pads pretty much finished up, I think. And I think we're doing pretty good. Now I can see a tiny little scratch here and there. I can kind of see as I'm really looking at this, you know, you can see if you've got a spot or two where maybe you did get a sanding scratch. And so I can see that you got to pay attention to that and be wary of those. But overall, I think it looks pretty good. So I think what I might do is set that aside for now and start in on over here on the tub. And I'm going to go right to my wet sanding with that. I think what I might do is my 1500 grit was in that form of that flexible foam pad thing. And I think that one might be about at its end of its useful life. So I might get me a couple more of those. But I think I was rewatching that guy that, you know, said, oh, so you painted your thing in your driveway and now you get all these problems. He went 1500 grit, 2000 grit, and I think he even went to 3000. He said he does 5000 sometimes if he has that because he doesn't like to buff. And, you know, obviously the more sanding you do, the smoother you make your finish. But I think, you know, for a garage paint job, I think I got this. So again, I could probably spend a little bit longer with the ultra fine pad on the thing. Whether or not I do will kind of depend on how the rest of the Jeep goes here. So I think that's what I'll do. I think I'm going to start in on this front fender and cut into the back fender or the cowl and all that. Now, again, in the interest of full disclosure, I can see a difference between those two panels right now. I was afraid of that. I'm more afraid now, but I'm not going to panic until I get some sanding done. Maybe by the time it's all buffed out and sanded, it will be okay. But we'll see. That might be a little bit of an issue. You know, worst case, well, not even going to speculate at this point. We'll just see what happens when I start into it. So I think that's what I'm doing. I think I'm set the hood aside for now. It's pretty darn good looking, I think. So that's where we're going to leave it for the time being and move on, or we're never going to get done with this thing. All right, guys. Well, I am going to try to show you what I'm working on here. I'm back on the back driver's side corner, and I had a little sag in my clear coat here. So I've got this little de-nibbing tool and I'm just going along, taking off a little bit at a time of this thing. Now I'll say this is that tungsten carbide little de-nibbing tool that guy on that video I watched had. So I ordered one of those, and it doesn't need very much pressure. I mean, almost no pressure at all. I'm just kind of lightly rubbing it back and forth across this area. And if all goes well, that's going to take that run right out of the picture here. I've done the same thing on a couple of nibs here and there. There was one right up there. So again, all I'm doing is I'm just laying the thing down pretty close to flat, and I'm just letting it scrape across those nibs, those little bumps, those little dust particles or whatever, and it just scratches them right off. So hopefully I have, because you know this is built up layers of clear coat, we should be just fine once we get it all down there, and then it will sand and polish out like everything else. So I'll keep working on that a little bit, and then once I have it where that whole area is kind of scratched up, then I'll know I think I've got it pretty much gone. But as long as there's a hard edge on that bottom part of that sag, you can tell that that's still high there. So I'll work on that for a few more minutes and I'll show you when I'm all done. All right, well there's that spot, and I've got it down to where I think it's going to be okay now. I'm going to leave it and move on to wet sanding the rest of the thing. So I have started up there working my way around on the Jeep here a little bit. So I haven't got very far, but I'm just going to continue on. I'm not going to bother making you watch me do that because it's boring, but I'll be back when I got it all kind of my first pass of sanding done. All right, well, first pass. Good progress. Time for lunch. All right, well, how good is good gotta be? So again, I'm struggling right now to find some frame of reference for how much orange peel is normal and how much is crappy garage paint job work. So looking at the hood, there's way less than that panel right there. So I'll probably continue on a little bit. I just took this section right here, and this is the first go around. It's pretty bad. And I took some 2000 grit or some 3000 grit and threw on the buffer and gave it a pass with some 3000 grit again, and then went back with my lamb's wool thing. See that dude in that thing? He does not know what he's doing. All right, well, another little rainstorm just blowing in, and it's getting along in the evening where it's about time to put this project to bed for the weekend. So I've been over and over and over. I just switched up to the super fine foam pad, and I'll make a pass with that, but not tonight because it's getting late. I do want to get the car in here, and I think at some point Gray might come over and we're going to look at her car, make sure she's ready to go to Colorado this weekend. However, boy, don't that hood look good. Hood looks really good. This panel's coming along. So, you know, every time I look at the reflection here, it gets a little less squiggly, and some portions of it are not too bad at all. But, you know, when you study it, you're like, yeah, there's still some orange peel down there. And I just think there's going to be some. I don't think I'm going to cure that, not with my skill set. So what I'm going to do is I am going to do the super fine pad, and that's about it. I think then it's going to have to be good enough. Okay, well, here we are with our garage Tetris update. So just wanted to show you how I get everything in here. I left the little table stood up. Remember, that's my water thing out of the truck. So anyway, I put the hood back on these dollies so I can move it around, and everything else goes under the Jeep. Now, I will say one thing about this clear coat, man. I thought I had put a big old scratch in it right there, and I was kind of working over it and just going, oh, well, how'd I do that? And then right here, I did somehow scuff it with something. And this up here turned out to be something that had gotten on the clear coat. I took my nib tool, and when I started to kind of work on it a little bit, it came right off. So that was okay. That was not a problem. This, I have kind of buffed it out. It might still be a little bit of it that we'll be able to see out in the bare daylight, but I don't know. So yeah, that's a pretty good weekend worth of stuff. I did not get anything done more on the boat because it's been kind of raining off and on all weekend. So there we go. But I got a lot done on this thing. I do think that I recall that in that guy's video, he was saying when your hands are going numb from holding on to the buffer too long, then you know that you're just about halfway there or something like that. I can attest to the fact that your hands do get numb and crampy from like holding the thing the same way. So paying your dues, paying your dues, paying your dues, man. I keep saying that, but I believe that's probably what this boils down to, is if you want this to look really good, you got to pay the piper. So cha-ching, I've been paying him. So we're going to leave it here. I think I'm going to put this one in the can. And next, because I don't know when I'll be back out here, probably what I'll do is if the weather clears up next week in the evenings, I'll probably continue to work on the boat a little bit. And then, because I would like to get some of that primer up on that thing. If it's going to start turning off to be winter and rainy and all that kind of stuff, the better I can have that sealed up, the better off it will be. And this can work. I can work on this all winter long because that's what I did last winter. So no rush, and no one's probably judging my work except me. Maybe you guys out there watching me are. And if you are, you know, I've said it before. I mean, hardly anyone ever says, man, I hate that paint job, or geez, what a mess, or that looks okay. You paint dudes, I know someone out there's got to be watching this is, like I said, I've said it a million times, you're probably screaming at the computer going, no, you idiot, you're doing it wrong. I really would like to have any feedback from anyone about my techniques, my end results. If you think I'm getting that orange peel under control enough to deal with it. You know what? I was looking at the Tacoma. So I've looked at the side panel. I've looked at the tailgate. And there's some orange peel looking stuff on that, you know, factory paint jobs. So now the BMW might be a different story. It's kind of wet right now. It's all covered with droplets, so I can't really tell. But I'm gonna dry off one of these fenders or clean it up, you know, when it dries out, and I'm gonna peer down the length of that and see what the situation is with a BMW paint job versus a DJC paint job, or ITG in the garage paint job. So, okay, sorry. Here we go. I'm wrapping it up. Thanks for watching, man. I'll catch you next time around.